All right. So, welcome this evening to the Atenoux. The last couple of nights I've been watching the moon get bigger and just really bright. And it's been a really interesting contrast between the weather patterns of the clouds. Right. Oh gosh. So, well, I had the stream open on my laptop. That was weird. So as I was saying, there's been this interesting pattern where I've noticed as the clouds come in the morning and there's rain and there's thunderstorms, and then they go away again in the afternoon and there's sunshine, and then they usually come back again at night. But in the evening, on my way home from work, I would just always see the moon. And yesterday, there was in the distance over like the hill far away, just this gorgeous lightning show. And so in honor of the fact that, I've moved quite recently this summer, started a new job, and and finally the weather is starting to turn to something that's a bit more bearable, I felt that it was a really appropriate time to have a Tyrannos ritual. Before we get started, I'd like to briefly introduce myself. I'm Mori. I am the Bardoi or Bardon of the Ualetikantalon, and just here to share a little Atenoux ritual with you. So, first I'd like to take a moment to just reflect and settle down with this small sort of meditative sentence. Rain pounding on the roof, thunder rumbling over lofty realms, leaves shivering on autumn winds. Be still, be still, be still. Let us now take 3 deep breaths, breathing in through our noses and exhaling through our mouths, or however you feel most comfortable breathing, to ground ourselves in this moment. I will now light the sacred fire. Hail to you, Nematona Sertona, deep-rooted, ever-burning fire. May your far-reaching branches cast their protective shade over those who gather in your grove tonight. Sacred flame, share with us your light and warmth. Shield us from cursing tongues and cruel hands. Ancestors who have walked this earth before me, parents of my parents, guides of my guides, teachers of my teachers, I offer you this gift of salt and ask to walk alongside me now and light the path. I've got this small jug of Hallstatt ice salt, which I'm very grateful that I got over the summer while visiting my sister who lives in Austria. Lady Neckar, ever-changing, leaping, teasing, challenging, you bridge the here and there, the now and the then. Please open the path between worlds. I offer you this gift of salt. Now we get to the part for Tyrannos. Hail to you, Tyrannos. Hail to you, thundering warrior of Albios. Spear shaker, shield breaker, charioteer. As the nights grow longer and colder, as the drought breaks under your onslaught. As we enter new phases in our lives cycles, I offer you this gift of need and thank you for the gift of change. Hail, Tyrannos, you filled with the potential for new life, you who keeps the wheel spinning, teaching us of birth, death, and rebirth, teaching us of giving, receiving, and returning. You who reminds us of the potency of transformation, transgression, and transition. I ask that you stand by us in uncertain times so that we may hold your lessons in our hearts and our hands. Hail to you, Tyrannos. I invite you all to take a moment to make your own offerings, light your own candles, set up your own prayers before I close the ritual space. It was a short one, but I hope one that leaves room for contemplation. I thank you, Tyrannos, keen-eyed life bearer, for your wisdom and your guidance. I thank you, Nekar, for allowing us to partake in your waters, for the reflection of the moon on your surface, reflecting our prayers throughout the worlds. I thank you, Nematona Sertona, for guarding my altar and my hearth. Though we may dim your light in Bitu, the heat of your spirit burns on. Thank you, sacred flame. Though we break the boundaries here in Bitu, the spirit of this wall is untouched. Thank you, gracious grove. The ritual is closed, the silence is broken. Let us feast under the protection of the Dewoi. So I also now invite you to take a drink or a bite to eat of anything that you might have prepared for this evening, afternoon, or very early morning, depending where you are in the world. I've prepared a couple of discussion questions surrounding the topic of change. And I invite the people in this call, who I believe are Reno and Kuno, to participate in the discussion. If anyone else joined in, please also feel free to participate, either in chat or in by speech, video, audio. Just be sure that this is being recorded on and will be remaining on YouTube, so don't do anything you're not comfortable with, of course. Yeah, I'm just gonna get a little sip of my own. And I invite you to, yeah, join in. So the first question that I have is that, so Tyrannos is a popular deity, especially within our communities, who represents change. And so is who I felt called to while reflecting on the subject of this Atenoux, for reasons I specified at the beginning of the ritual. So I was wondering if there were any other Dewoi that you might approach in terms of, or in times of change or upheaval.
I'll go first. I think definitely a Carnunos is a great Dewoi to approach in times of change. Liminal transitions. Passing from one stage of your life to the next. I feel it is very appropriate. I remember we had a conversation like this similar in Gul chat recently too. So it does feel like the Tyrannus change and then Carnunos change is has very different vibes to it though. Like Carnunos is more internal, change, while Tyrannus is more external change. But that's just the way I feel about it. Reno, do you have anything you want to jump in on this as?
You stole my number one answer. I think that there are a lot of gods I worship that have a change aspect. But in terms of Daewoo here in Galpol, I think that Carnonos is the big one. But I've also found myself working with a lot of my own internal changing, and that's been brought about a lot by worshiping the gods of the various winds, which I have imported as part of the Gallo-Roman praxis. So Favonius, Boreas, those guys. But that seems to be a lot more of a change in circumstance than Carnonos's change in life phases. So it's cool how that concept is approached differently as well. But Carnonos is definitely the big guy.
I love that the Zoom transcript is translating Carnonos to Kronos, which is interesting because I think Kronos also represents.
Kronos would be phenomenal for change, or any Saturn.
Exactly.
Really. So if you're Gallo-Roman, there's Saturn, yes, as well.
No, but absolutely, I think that those are great points regarding different kinds of change. I think Tyrannos also kind of has that aspect of, easy come, easy go, or things that happen, you might not always understand why they happen, but it is the wheel of fortune almost, it goes round and round, and you'll be somewhere you don't expect very quickly, but that's still part of life. Whereas, Carnonos has a much steadier vibe of going from one place to another place, and you don't know where you're going to end up there either, but it feels bigger changes maybe.
And we have a member of the audience suggesting Lugus as well, which is Lugus is is the many skilled, so can cover a lot of bases.
Absolutely, yeah, and of course has that traveler aspect as well.
Mm-hmm.
Being on the road. I think also any Mercury, any face of Mercury might also be a good one. This just reminds me of our train conversation in Gall Chat. If you want to know more about our opinions on trains, come hang out in our Discord server. It's called Gall Chat. I have a second and a third question if y'all are ready to move on.
Go for it. Let's hear it.
All right. So I think that this is also a question that sort of has been discussed a little bit this week in the server, but more specifically, I think because we're nearing like the next big equinox, I was wondering if your practices change seasonally or cyclically, and maybe not even consciously. Maybe there's some patterns that when you reflect that you notice in your religious practices.
I can actually take this one because seasonally for me is a huge deal. I'm a big 2-season guy, winter and summer, with spring and fall as more of a transitionary period. But for me, an absolutely huge part of that is the Alkoi, the divine horse twins. Similar to how in some Roman and Greek myths, they are said as, alternating their divinity each day. For me, and what aligns more with the local folklore of my home country, is a division of divinity between the seasons. So the dark half of the year would be ruled by one of the Alkoi, whereas the lighter half is ruled by another. And it just represents different styles of divine leadership, because they do function as the role of the king, or sacral king, better said, not the leader king, but the religious king in Bittus here with us. So for me, we have a big transition every, around May, whatever the moon is there, where I put up the maypole, and every November the maypole goes back down, and we have a big transitionary / New Year's feast. that we do for the changing of leadership for the Alkoi.
We have
Yes.
a message just real quick from our audience, from Kyle, and they say, "This is my first year in Gulpool, but I'm already feeling like as the fall comes on, I feel more meditative and contemplative, as where in the summer it was all more about rejoicing the external world."
Oh, yeah, good
That's
point, Kyle. Yeah.
big vibe that I've been having as well. That I actually noticed when I first joined Galpal, which was last November, and that I had a very, contemplative relationship with Erakura, who is kind of one of my sort of almost patron deities in terms of importance to my personal practice and sort of like how I got here, where I've noticed as spring came on, I found that my nearness to her was the distance increased as other deities who were more external, like Tyrannos, for example, felt more present in my life. And I'm curious to see how that cycles back as we enter back into the weekend. How about you, Kuno?
For me, it's a lot more of where I am, and like what I'm currently doing. If I'm comfortable in my space, then I'm gonna be then my practice is a lot more active. And then if I'm I'm in a period in my life where a lot of my time I'm inhabiting in a transitional space, so I'm not necessarily comfortable in my environment. So for me, it's very much more so focused on that, on my personal, seasonal changes, rather than ones that reflect external processes. But hopefully, once I can put my feet much better on the ground, and my external processes, the external processes kind of mimic my internal ones, then hopefully I can have something similar to Reno, because that sounds really cool.
Yeah, that ties in really well with my last question, which is whether change in your everyday life makes you feel closer to or further from the Deoi, or if it affects your practice at all. And, I think you've given a very clear signal that when you're in a place where you're just not in your literal physical space that you feel comfortable in, that does affect your practice. I wonder how that, how that experience, translates for Reno or for anyone in chat.
For me, I found a lot of reflection on how I want to improve in my everyday life. So recently I found myself needing to improve in certain spaces, and with how I process frustrations and angers, and oftentimes not voicing displeasure, but keeping it inside, and then building frustrations towards people. So one thing that I had to do is I had to seek out a Dewoi who would help me see the improvements, someone I could model myself after. And if I engaged with the relationship, this was something that they were going to be able to teach me with. And so my cultus is always slightly modifying based on that. And I think that's a really easy way to do it too, is to view them as role models, because a lot of them have really great stuff they can teach us, especially for the day-to-day stuff. If you want to become a better parent, and you have a Dewoi who's one of their chief domains is, parentage, then it would make incredible sense to reach out to them and just kind of see how they do it. If you're the father of all winds, or, the father of all of the hunting spirits, then I'm sure you've got something to tell someone who's a father of 2 mortal children.
I like that a lot.
Sounds got real specific at the end there, Reno. With your 2 mortal kids.
Well, one of them's pretty indestructible, so
yeah,
we'll see whether or not
that remains to be
being
seen.
mortal or not.
Yeah, but actually, I really do appreciate what you pointed out there, is that different Dewey can help us in different times of our lives and different phases of our lives. Like, actually, I found myself, praying to Sabrona pretty much every day. I work in a healthcare job. And sometimes you see a lot of tough things at work, and you see a lot of you see a lot of suffering and illness. And I think that having that moment to sort of just say, give me the strength to approach this with dignity, with respect for the people involved, respect for their families and their loved ones, and give them, bring some peace and some good pain medication, as it were. May the morphine pumps flow freely, as it were. It's a very, very specific thing, but in terms of end of life care, I think there's a lot that I've there's a lot to learn there.
Oh yeah, it is definitely in the end of life care. Just those last few months of someone's life. This is kind of like way off topic, but it's like that is a very kind of like, you're a time where you're kind of like, if you're close to someone at that period of their life, it's very in tune with the divine.
Yeah, and I think it's especially also a time of a lot of change, and a lot of change that is to come, that you can see coming, and have to process in certain ways. And so, I'm not someone to push my beliefs on other people, and so I'm not out here being like, hey, I'll pray to my Deoi for you. But I do think that it encourages me to reflect on how I approach these things. And and I hope that, by asking for aid in my daily life and in my workings and in my, the things that I do, I can bring that strength or that comfort to bear in my workplace. But yeah, the original question was, of course, if your personal circumstances change your practice at all, or if change changes your practice. And I think that I think it's safe to say that, yeah, it's kind of a trick question. I think that everyone's practice might change with change.
For sure. I think that's it also depends on how it changes. It's like, if time is uncertain, are you going to do less devotionals because you have less time, or are you going to be doing more because everything is so uncertain and you need to be able to ground yourself in the Deoi? People react to change, to stress, to differing circumstances in so many different ways. So it's, while the answer is yes, the yes and is, has infinite number of answers.
Exactly. That was my last question for discussion points. I don't know if you all have other questions that you want to bring to the table, or if anyone in chat has asked any questions or given any responses, because I think the responses we've had from chat so far have been really, have been interesting answers, and I'd love to hear more.
Kyle did kind of went on and said, I was mentioning the other day in Discord that I was trying to improve my diet, and I prayed to Atenoux last night, and I found it a lot easier today to deal with cravings, and I was surprised at how strong the response was. So that was really great to hear. That sometimes, just as Reno said, you just need the Deoi are fantastic role models, and they can give us that inspiration to help us out with our daily lives. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad to hear that also for you. I can't hear if you're saying Kai or Kyle. And the Zoom transcript is not giving me a lot of hints. But yeah, I'm glad to hear it for you.
But I think this is an excellent point to wrap it up. Just a nice 25 minutes Atenoux.
Oh, that's beautiful timing.
So thank you so much, Mori, for leading this September Atenoux and giving us such a fantastic ritual.
Thank you so much for checking in and having an interesting conversation with me. And I look forward to doing this again in the future. But I also look forward to seeing many other members whoever's comfortable sharing their versions of their rituals, especially as we come from the summer rituals where I know you were outside, Rena was outside, to more maybe indoor rituals or perhaps even outdoor snowy rituals.
Yeah, you can't stop me from going outside in my shorts to do rituals in the middle of winter.